He's here with me, hailing from Saipan, Vin Armani. Vin, are you ready to roar?
I am ready to roar.
I knew you would be. And Vin, we're going to kind of just pick up right where we left off back in June. If anyone listening now has not heard that episode, stop what you're doing right now. Click back to Lions of Liberty episode 464. Take the 90 minutes to listen to that one and come right back here because we're going to jump in hot. And I want to start talking about it's been a hashtag. It's been trending a little bit at least, and that is the dim age. Vin, you've been talking about this for months and months and months. So for anybody out there not familiar with it, or maybe they've seen the hashtag and just think, what the hell is this guy talking about? What exactly is the dim age? What is it that we're experiencing here?
Yeah, that what the hell is this guy talking about seems to be a pretty
I'm sure you get it a
common,
lot.
yeah, that seems to be the first reaction of most people upon encountering the things that I say. Okay, so the dim age, this actually began as something that I was speaking about with my friend Dave Butler on a podcast that we used to do. And it came up, I think, in the context first with me with seeing the emergence of flat Earth and this flat Earth movement. And I said, something, this is interesting. Like something's happening here. And I had very intelligent people and even business partners. It wasn't just like Eddie Bravo types. It was people who I genuinely respect their opinion and are smart people and I've done business with. And I know that they're just not like fantastical. And they would say things like, yeah, no, man, like really, I think really go check it out. Just like don't discount it. Like just go take a look. And I was like, flat Earth though? Like really? That's like the Earth is flat? And I said, okay, something is happening here. I had been writing and speaking, and I even did a long video series called The Ascendant Project, which people can go check out on my YouTube back in 2016, where some things that I had been studying for many years were saying that we should be looking at some sort of a global societal shift, something like the movement of an age. We should be on the cusp right now. Something is there. And so when I say like the age we're talking about, so there's been this idea of ages throughout history. In the East, they have many different kinds, but the specific system that I had been studying for a long time is based on the Hindu Varna system, which is this it's basically the peasant, the warrior, the thinker or priest, and the merchant, which is Shudra, Kshatriya, Vipra, and Brahmin, which are like the four classes or castes in India. People may be familiar with that. There's a caste system that has traveled down, and it's kind of based on their religion. It's very, very old, this idea. And there was a Indian guru who was really prominent in the 70s and 80s called P.R. Sarkar, who said that that is actually a description of this sort of eternal cycle that humanity moves through. And this same kind of notion in the West, where we get like the term the Golden Age, this is from Hesiod, this ancient Greek. And the idea was that there were these ages, the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, the Age of Heroes, which is kind of in the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age. And we also have those ideas. So even in archaeologically, there's the Stone Age, there's the Bronze Age. We talk about the Roman, the age of Rome, and then you had the Dark Ages and the Renaissance and the Enlightenment and all of that. So these patterns of this idea that there are these ages and we move through them has been throughout all cultures in the world. All of these ideas, even go to the Mayan calendar, Judaism and the idea of the patriarchs that you have in Genesis, the idea that there was an age before the flood, there's an age after the flood, and all of these ideas that there are these moments where something shifts. And so for years, it looked as though like something really big is going to come and make a shift. And that really big thing in the way that these systems is understood is that it's not that this event would necessarily create the shift itself. It's that humanity is like ready for a shift, you might say, that we're moving along in this pattern, similar to how like an individual is growing, and we have these times as individuals where it's like, this was the moment when I became an adult, you could say, right? We sort of have those moments, or this was the moment when I think for a lot of people, it's like having children. Something happens and something shifts, and it's like, oh, I'm an adult now. Wow, I just realized that. And it's really that we have these catalysts that create this realization that something has changed. And so that's happening on a grand scale. So I've been saying, what is this? What is this? And everything was pointing to this idea of a new age of magic. So a new mystical age. And the question of like, how do you fall into the dark age? Like, how do you go from this Roman empire, this light, this knowledge, and how do you just like all of a sudden they say, oh, the fall of Rome? Well, that took 100 years at least, if not more, for the West to fall. Byzantine, the Eastern Roman Empire, never fell really. It lasted for another 1,000 years after, during the Dark Ages. Rome existed in Constantinople. It was one of the most powerful empires in the world, the Byzantine Empire. They still spoke Latin. They called themselves Romans. So Rome didn't fall. It was only the West. And so it's like, well, why does it fall? Why do these falls happen? And it looks to me like we can't say necessarily why it fell, like what the catalyst was, but we could say like what it looked like. What did the Dark Age look like? And what the Dark Age looked like was an age of magic, basically, where you had this return to superstition, and highly religious. And so the flat earth was like that moment when I said, ooh, 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 we're at the risk of this. We're at the risk of actually en masse being able to return to like a superstitious age. People who have been raised, who can actually literally go and look and see pictures of the round earth. There's astronauts. Could you imagine the scale of the conspiracy that would be necessary for there to be for the earth to be flat? And for everybody who's saying that the earth is round, all these scientists, all the people who have it, can you imagine the scale, the sheer scale of the conspiracy? But yet you had millions probably of people, if you go by the YouTube views, who were willing to be like, yeah, the conspiracy is that big. Well, if you're willing to believe that, you could believe just about anything. And I think that was when I said, oh, we're about to enter a new dark age. And there was somebody who had responded to a tweet of mine where I said that, and he said, oh, the dim age. I'm trying to, I should remember his name because I told him I would credit him with this. At the
Mystery
time.
Twitter person, if you're out there, please.
Yeah, I'll go find it so that in the future, because I do want to credit him. But I said, oh God, I love that, because it really is that. It's that the light is out there. It's not a complete dark age, although we'll see. Like, we're also seeing this censorship happen. We're seeing knowledge being just removed from, and memory hold. And where would we go and get it? We've been relying upon, we don't download content anymore. We don't store it with us. It's like it's in the cloud. Well, what happens when you just take it out of the cloud? Well, does it exist anymore? Is there another copy? Will I ever be able to find it? We were talking about that here with Stefan Molyneux's work, right? Before he became a Trumpist and a statist, he introduced so many of us. He really opened my eyes to voluntarism and anarchism with his books and whatnot. And it's like, dude, he's a historical figure.
His video where he kind of like lays out this whole concept of human beings actually being like animals on a farm, and that states are
the
all kind
story
of
your
like that.
Yes.
That was a total red pill moment for me. I was like, oh yeah, I totally see that.
The story, that video is called The Story of Your Enslavement.
Yeah.
And there's probably a few, and you're right, it's fantastic. It's like what, 5 minutes long or something like that. It's just like this, it's just this punch in the face of like, whoa, it is a total red pill moment. And so, and I think when it was taken down, the original video probably had in the tens of millions of views. So
that one's been wiped now.
It's wiped. Yeah.
Because now Stefan Molyneux is one of the undesirables or what have you that we need to pretend they don't exist.
How does, and I mean, you can have undesirables or whatnot, but to say that this is not one of the most influential political philosophers of his generation, well, who else then? Right? Like who reached as many people as him, whether I agree with him or not.
And it's funny, they'll take down Stefan Molyneux's videos, they'll take down like Tom Wood's videos about describing the COVID cult, but all the flat Earth videos are there
They're up
with
there.
no objections, no fact checked or anything like that.
And that sort of says it all. So what says it all is that we're entering into a new age of magic, that it's only magic and superstition that is going to survive. I think that we reach this point, we can probably see maybe how the Romans reached this point. And what I've been pointing out to people is I've said, look, we have all of this. And I think this is where some of this trust the science narrative in the COVID thing comes in, is it's this hubris, this arrogance that we have of living in a technologically advanced society and ascribing to ourselves the advancement, mm-hmm. as though we actually know how to make any of the things that we use on a day-to-day basis, because we don't. And that is where I think the magic comes in, is that where does a cell phone come from? And how does it work? How does the screen work? How does the touch screen work? Right? That you touch on it, you touch on this glass. How do you know how to do resistive glass? No, you have no idea. It's magic. How does the camera work on there? Oh, it's a digital camera. So it's converting photons into ones and zeros. How does that work? That thing you use every day. You have no idea. It may as well be a crystal ball. It may as well be an amulet.
What we're doing right now is absolute magic. I mean,
this is magic.
I can hardly tell you how this is even happening, to be honest.
It's and even here's what's crazy. Even the people who work at Zoom, 99, but well, I would say 100% of them couldn't tell you how all of Zoom works. At most, they could tell you very well how their little piece works, and they might be able to give you some vague description of how some other pieces work, but they'd be lost on some huge percentage. Because even the developers, it's like, okay, how does the accounting work here? How does the payroll work? Where does your paycheck come from? Okay, you can tell me how you're sending packets, through TCP/IP. How does your payroll work? Oh, I don't know. And so we have brought ourselves into a place where literally we are living in a world of magic. For our subconscious minds, we may as well be in Middle Earth, and this may as well be coming from wizards.
Is part of the fact that our brains like literally can't really comprehend how all these things around us are happening, how that we can shoot ourselves in giant cylinders in the sky to different parts of the world, how we can talk over these screens and with these little sticks that somehow transmit my voice, is part of that fact that we can't really comprehend it, what lends people to so blindly believe anything else they're told, because they're sort of taking this all as the same thing. We have all these advancements. Yes. They're ours now as humanity. So of course wear your fucking mask, because they told us that's what don't worry about if it works. Stop talking. No one wants to hear me break down how this microphone works, and no one wants to hear me break down if a mask is functional or not.
Well, and it wouldn't, the thing is that it wouldn't matter whether you broke it down or not, which is what we're seeing. And which is what I love Jeffrey Tucker, but I mean, to be fair, I have been trolling him for months now. Because and I'm trolling him out of truly out of love, because I do love him, and I do think that he's like a powerful voice for positive change.
Yeah, I just did an interview with Jeffrey about a month ago where he went on a whole hour-long tirade about mass culture and lockdowns, and it was a blast. But then I'll go on his Twitter the next day and see him going more about, I can't believe people are believing this with all these data points here. I'm like, well,
yeah, the data points.
It's the data points. It's always the data points, and no one gives two shits about data points.
Well, and because nobody can give two shits about data points, because nobody understands. They don't mean anything, and that's. What's also been interesting is that at the same time that this has been happening, we have had this rise, and I think the quintessential person is Jordan Peterson, but there's a lot of people in that, what would I say, in that intellectual milieu, that intellectual space. And you will notice that the watchword for all of them is the word meaning, right? Like that's even Jordan Peterson's shtick. Like his book is Maps of Meaning. and the thesis, and that's an old book, right? So this is like what his whole work has been about, and kind of the thesis, the core thesis that underlies it all is that of Jordan Peterson's message is that the world is not made of things. The world is made of meaning. Like, you don't see the thing. You actually don't see the thing. You see the meaning of the thing. Like, the thing is nothing. And this is like an old philosophical concept. And so what we have, and I think that why you see they want to adopt the mask, wear a mask, social distance, do all of this. Well, why? Because if you don't do that, the world, this what's happening has no meaning. I saw today some doctor tweeted, now people have been tagging me on dim age tweets. Yeah. So things that represent the dim age, they'll tag me. And this doctor, this tells you the point that we've reached, where today you have an MD, and the tweet was, and I retweeted, quote tweeted it so people could go and look, but this is an MD who says, it is not a bad, and he capitalizes bad, virus that's killing us. It's bad behavior that's killing us. Oh.
Now it's on us.
Oh, I thought it was a virus that was killing us. Oh, okay. It's bad behavior now. And if that is not hearkening back to a time that, I mean, we're really going back to Genesis now, right? Like, this is Sodom and Gomorrah being smitten by God for their wicked ways.
I saw another tweet from like another doctor type who said, I'm going to take the vaccine, I'm going to take the second dose in 2 months, and I'm still going to wear my masks, and I'm still going to social distance until Dr. Fauci tells me to. That was his only other connection of why he might change his behavior. Not because he, as a doctor, can decide if the vaccine is working or if the vaccine is effective or if masks are effective. Only when Dr. Fauci tells him it's okay to act differently.
That is, and you think about the incentives here, the perverse incentives. That is like the same incentives of the personal trainer. I often tell people, I'm like, oh, you have a personal trainer? Yeah, I got a personal trainer. Oh, they work out with you? Yeah. Have they ever offered for you to come and work out with them as their workout partner? Do you know whether or not the workout they give to you is the workout they do? Are they in great shape? Yeah, they're in great shape. Do you know whether or not the workout they do for themselves is the one they give to you? Because I do know, I've worked out at gyms that are like pro bodybuilder gyms, and that have personal trainers who are like concierge pro bodybuilders, and I see the workout they give their clients, and then I see the workout they do. It's not even close. And you get the reason why. You understand. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Because if you showed your client the workout that you do, which is relatively simple, not complex, and you do the same thing pretty much every week, and your body looks like this, they would stop paying you.
Right.
They wouldn't need you after about a month. You would have shown them how to do everything that you do, and boom, they're done. They're doing what you do now, and you don't need a personal trainer. And so it's like, why on earth would Dr. Fauci, who is nobody if there's no COVID, ever say that COVID is over? That would be like, I mean, I was on a TV show for many years. That would be like me choosing to cancel my own show.
It would be like you calling for an end to gigolos.
Yeah, it's over. It's okay. I'm ending it. I'm never. It's like, wait a minute. Why would I turn down the paycheck? Like, let them cancel it. And so, and these people will be around, and Fauci is going to be around in the next administration. He's a bureaucrat. He's an appointee. He's been around through many administrations. He's going to continue to be around through this administration. And this is what people want. People want meaning. You see, it's giving people the ability to suffer. And that's what people really want, because suffering is meaning. Suffering, it's like, yes, we're going to get through this. Think about all the things they say. You're doing this for the greater good. You're responsible. This is how you slip into the dark age. This is how you slip into the dim age, is because you're like, look, I have all these things. You're telling me all these things. The science is this and it's this. I can't take it in. I don't have a background, but I also don't need to know any of it. Like, I don't need to know where food comes from. I don't need to know how a cell phone is created. I don't need to know how the supply chains work. Somebody else knows all of that. The experts, quote unquote, the experts know it. And they must know it because the world is operating. And if somebody didn't know it, then ostensibly the world would just stop. And so trust the experts.
That's literally almost the only argument I see anymore is you might come back, you might see someone come back with a good fact or countering with a chart that where the mask mandates don't match up, and then it will always come back down to, okay, well, I'm sure you know better than the experts.
Yeah. Well, and if they are quoting, and this is another thing, and it's another reason why in some ways I'm trolling Jeffrey, is that all he's doing is he's putting, if I come with a chart, right? I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a quote unquote expert. So all you're doing, if you come with, oh, this is the one chart, this is the chart. Well, at the end of the day, that chart was made by an expert. So all you're doing is you're putting your expert against their expert. But you're still, you've ceded, and this is what I said when the Great Barrington Declaration, this is what I tweeted. I said, this is going to fail spectacularly because what you've done by saying, oh, here's the steps we need to take, and herd immunity is the way to go, and we want to do this, and it's signed by all these experts. I said, what you've done is you've ceded the mythological ground.
You're agreeing to the rules of the game here. You're agreeing.
Yes.
Experts is who we have to listen to. So here's ours. It's the only difference.
Exactly. And so it's like, then you've lost. Because they've got the imprimatur of the state, right? These are the state experts. These are the accredited. See, they can give all kinds of certificates and accreditation. That's what the state does, is they decide who's qualified to speak or not to speak, but by giving you a license, by giving you a registration, by authorizing you to do XYZ. Oh,
by
yes,
putting you on TV. If you're on TV,
by putting you on TV, you must be an expert. And then you have or social media companies, right? So it's like, oh, well, what we're going to do to show that you're not an expert, fact check, put a little disclaimer under your thing. This person is not an expert, but the experts, then we're going to we're going to raise them up. We're going to fully monetize all of that. Oh, it's going to have, this person was on ABC News. Oh, we brought them in. Oh, they're going to be on the late night talk show talking about something. Oh, they're clearly, and then you get the Dr. Fauci's. And so this is where you slip into. And you slip into a place where, and I think we've already reached that, where it's like the experts have taken over. The experts, quote unquote, are running the show. And now the most psychopathic, control freak individuals in the coming generations will strive to be experts because that's the technocracy. Like, it's going to be run by experts. I'm just going to defer to the experts, right? You hear the people with the guns of the state, the governors, the presidents. This is not me.
That's what Gavin Newsom says in his press conference, like every single day. He says, we're going to continue to listen to the experts, to trust the science, and we're going to keep doing these things we have to do until this. He actually will say this now. Of course, it wasn't, first it was just to save grandma and flatten the curve, but now it's until this virus is gone.
Until it's gone.
Until it's gone.
Until
okay.
it's gone.
Well, all right then.
How do you and how could you possibly ever know that the virus was, it's a virus? How could you ever know that it was gone? But hey, the experts say if we weld ourselves into our house, then the virus will go away. In the beginning of this thing, I said, and again, one of those, what the hell is he talking about things in March when this all started. And I mean, it's there. The receipts are there. You just go and you can look on Twitter.
Just scroll through that timeline.
And the fact that I'm in Saipan, where we came here the first week of April, should tell you that I pretty much, I had an idea of what was coming. But I said the coronavirus panic, and I said this in March, is what the Salem witch trials would have looked like if social media was around at the time.
Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with. It's and I've said this many times, but it really bears repeating because it's important. People think that, oh, those were unsophisticated country bumpkins. That's the reason why there was a Salem witch trial. Now, there were witch panics at that time all over, and all over Europe especially. But the Salem witch trial is particularly important because of who the individuals were who were involved. First off, they were not just country bumpkins. There was like a 99% literacy rate among those populations. They were some of the most literate people in the world. The individual who is most seen as being, what would you say, the main justifier and perpetrator of the Salem witch trials, sort of giving the intellectual backing, was a gentleman named Cotton Mather. He's one of the most famous colonial, let's say, leaders. He was a religious leader, but he was also a political leader. He highly intelligent, highly literate. His father, Increase Mather, was at the time the president of Harvard University. He was the leading religious sort of scholar, spoke multiple languages, including ancient ones like Latin and Hebrew, was actually the person, after the Salem witch trials took place, who introduced, ironically enough, inoculation, which then became vaccination, to North
If
America.
that's not a grand irony, I have no idea what is.
To North America. He was a member of the Royal Academy of Science. Okay? Now, mind you, this is
He was an
the
expert.
guy. This is the guy who was so he is a scientist. He was a scientist. He was one of the most intelligent, educated, articulate people. Even after the people had decided that the Salem witch trial was a gigantic mistake, which they had gone to him and said, should we be doing this? Is this right? And he had basically said, yes, this is Satan definitely walks among us. We need to be doing this. I'm sort of okaying this. He and his father wrote a book after the Salem witch trials, after everybody knew that it was bullshit. They wrote a book justifying their behavior and continuing the narrative that what they had done was right and the Salem witch trials was fine. And it's called The Wonders of the Invisible World. And the foreword of that is a letter from the Massachusetts lieutenant governor, basically saying, I co-sign everything Cotton Mather did. He's one of the greatest individuals and smartest and everything that we know. Go and look, Wonders of the Invisible World. You can read it. This is after the Salem witch trials. This is the president of Harvard University and the person who introduced inoculation to North America, saying, yes, what we did and said during the witch trials was the right thing to do, and we would do it again. That bears repeating. We are not different people. Human beings have not fundamentally changed in the way that we behave. These were the experts. This is what happens when you trust the experts. You get the Salem witch trials, and we're back again. History repeats itself.
It's funny you bring up inoculation there because that's something that has come up. The vaccine has come out since the last time we spoke, and now this is something that I'm seeing sort of being interweaved into the narrative, not replacing the other things that we were told we have to do because those are never going anywhere. Just adding on to it. So first, it's just you got to wear a mask for a little while and social distance for a while. Now it's you got to do it forever. Now it's for a while. I was hearing from people, oh, just until we get the vaccine. But now those same until we get the vaccine people, that narrative is even changing to even when you get the vaccine, you're going to have to mask up and social distance because you still could be spreading it around. And it just seems like they're adding more and more layers to what falls under the requirement of trusting the science. And I don't really have a question here. So just take it away on vaccines.
So I think what is important to realize is that we're not, so this word science, okay? I've been listening to this book Dominion, which is great, which is kind of like a companion, I would say, to this other book that took me about a year to get through, Darmaid McCullough's Christianity, the First 3,000 Years. But this is like a condensed version, and it's basically like how our entire cultures is suffused with with Christian ideas and where they all come from. So like all of these things that we take for granted in terms of the way we organize our minds all come from the history of Christianity and it being part of the culture, and we don't even know. And so this is like a breakdown kind of history, but also how did these ideas get introduced? And so it's funny because like I've been listening to this on audiobook on my walks in the evening, and just yesterday was the concept of religio, and how this was not necessarily about Christianity so much as it was about like initially the idea and the word was like about these cultural practices. So religio is like to bind. It means something that binds together. So it's like not about belief in God or any of this, but it's more about the actual rituals that you're participating in. And so we as human beings will naturally find these religio. That is culture. That's what we do. And so when we start introducing into the culture some fashion, some ritual, some tradition, the things that stick are the things that can be the most universal, that can be the most enforceable, and that are the most participatory. So you think about something like, so let's give an example of, so first off, America is a religion. America is a religion. The things that we do, the way that we behave, the way that we treat freedom of speech, the Second Amendment, all of these are the sacred things that we do and that we then participate in.
That's why you hear so many arguments, especially from conservatives. You always hear them referencing the founders and such reference. I mean, it's basically their version of referencing Jesus, because Moses brought down the commandments. That's why.
Yes, but it's like it's this evolutionary process of if something sticks, that means it's something that binds. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That it's like the fact that we still celebrate Thanksgiving in November, and the fact that we eat turkey. Like it could have been anything, but like the fact that it's turkey means that like turkey stuck. Right. There was something about turkey that was binding. There was
and if
something.
You tell someone you had prime rib instead of turkey, they're like, "What are you doing?
What are you doing? We don't do that on Thanksgiving.
What the hell?
Yeah, we don't do that. We don't do that on Thanksgiving, right?" Jonathan Pajot just did something about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Right? Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is a created character that was written in this little Christmas pamphlet in like, I think maybe like the 40s or something like that for Montgomery wards. It was something that they gave out at Montgomery wards, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. But we're like, no, Rudolph is just a part of, my daughter did a Christmas thing at school. Just yesterday we were there and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is a song there. And it's just like, it's part of it. Well, it's stuck. So
you made it all the way to Saipan, huh?
It's something that binds. Yeah. You know, that was, as I was watching, I was like, wow, they're dancing to Jingle Bell Rock. You know what I mean? It's like, these are things that stuck. And so that means that they're good in terms of as a religion because they bind. So they can't stick unless they bind. It's like this emergent evolutionary property. So when I saw these masks, and this is when I've been saying for months, I'm like, the masks are here forever. They're never going away. And people are like, what are you? No, of course they're going away. They got to be. And it's like, no, they've stuck. You've never seen in 1 year the entire globe go to, this is what you wear when you're out in public. I mean, globally, you know, it's fashion, it's clothing. It is clothing, right? Like, because we look at a burqa and we say that's clothing, right? We look at a veil that I see Bangladeshi women walking around here and they've got their face covered.
Like, and now suddenly they have masks that are, you know, the Spider-Man mask, the Wolverine mask, you know, any cultural anything you can put on a mask is in there because now it's not a medical device, certainly not a medical device.
No, it is a thing that binds, and it's a thing that makes people inside or outside. So if you are not wearing a mask in a group of people that are wearing a mask, something is wrong with you at this point. 9 months later, 9 months. If we want to talk about the stickiness of a meme, of a cultural binding agent, religio, this is super glue. We've never, ever seen anything in human history that has approached this because it went global in 9 months. And like global in a way to where, dude, even here, people are wearing masks. We haven't had, I mean, granted, like the way that people wear masks here tells me everything that I need to know. So this is
Halfway
still
down their
like,
face, or
well, it's not that. So I'll tell you, like, out on the beach today, there's going to be hundreds of people, okay? Like maybe thousands. Zero of them will be wearing masks. Zero of them will be social distancing. I was just walking on the beach today and I already saw that set up. There's areas for hundreds. They have big fiestas. They have extended families here. They go out on the beach. Hundreds of people are going to be out there. There's tables set up and they've rented awnings and the whole nine, lining the whole beach. There'll be thousands of people. You won't see a single mask. Maybe if you see some like Korean couple walking by, like the East Asians will still wear them out in public. But that's a cultural thing for them too, right? But the locals don't wear them. But they will wear them in a store, right? So if they go into a store, it's not been mandated here, but a lot of the stores,
that's not a requirement of the store. Is it a requirement of the store or a requirement?
Yes, stores are just not walking back from it, right? A lot of the stores are owned by like East Asians or whatever. I'm starting to see employees taking them down or just not wearing them and nobody's saying anything. And nobody's really been tripping on it. But here, it's a small island. You don't really, there's only 55,000 people in the Commonwealth. It's like you don't want to get a bad reputation. Reputation here is everything. Everything is these big families. And so the same people who are out on the beach mingling with each other tomorrow will be the people who are working the checkout line with the mask on. And then the person they were just with is going to be walking up with the mask on. Right. And it's like, that's kind of weird. My daughter goes to Catholic school. And so at the Catholic school, exactly same people, they go to the Christmas presentation, everybody's wearing a mask. And it's just like, well, because that's the thing to do. I watch kids who are making YouTube videos. This was what really got me.
This might be, I'm wondering if it's the same thing I was about to bring up, but go ahead, because I saw something this week that just scared the shit out of me, really.
So here the kids like to, you have like a big like Filipino population. So they love to do like group dance things and like singing and whatnot, right? Perform. And they'll do these, I see them do the YouTube videos like out in the parks on the beach and whatnot. So they will practice without the masks on. They don't wear masks out in public, right? But then when they're going to go and make the video, they all put on their masks.
Because it's for YouTube and they know it's going out there to everybody and this is what you're supposed to do now.
If you're a young, and so when I saw that, I was like, oh, these are here forever. These are here forever, because if the youth, right, these are teenagers, and like 13, 14, 15, whatever. If the youth who are supposed to be the ones like bucking the system are like, no, let us self-police and do this. Now, mind you, they're not wearing these masks around each other.
Right.
They're not scared at all. They're doing it completely for the external image so that they could be more like the mainlanders, which is the thing that you do here, right? Because everybody leaves. If you're a young person and you're successful in school, you leave. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, they're here forever.
The scariest thing I saw regarding masks was recently this week. I saw a video that someone posted online. It was like a compilation of videos of parents taking off. Like these are like toddlers or children, maybe no more than a year or two old. And it shows these parents taking masks off. And every time the parents take these masks off, the kids start freaking out and they start crying and screaming and they want the mask back, want the mask back. It's getting so deep in them. These kids don't even know night from day, right now. They're hardly developed at all, but they already know that they're safe with the mask on. They have this thing where they feel safe with the mask on. So if the mask is removed, suddenly they're not safe. And so now I see it coming in at that level for like babies that couldn't even tell you what a virus is.
Now,
but
how is that?
Trained.
And that's magic.
Yeah, exactly.
That's magic. So it has become a magic talisman. And when you start introducing, so back to like the science and how that was a long way to go back to this. I think that people first need to understand that the roots of science are in magic. So science as we know it came from alchemy, the alchemists. So Isaac Newton was an alchemist, avowed alchemist? John Locke, right? That's where we get our political theory from and our idea of what is property and all of this. Lockean philosophy was an avowed alchemist. So before there was the reason why someone is even thinking, why Newton is even thinking about the laws of nature is because he's doing this magical alchemical practice, which has elements of, you need to know a little something about how fire works and how metals work and how, the different substances that you're using. Of course, you're going to start to think about that. But we need to remember that magic was a component of that, and the meaning was a component of that. And it's not like it ever left. So it's not like, and as like I deal with this every day as a Bitcoin developer, and it's something that like I'm trying to share with people more, is that it's like mathematics, we're like, oh, trust the science and all of this. And it's like, do you understand how spooky advanced math is? Like the fact that these numbers that we somehow figured out that this actually describes the way that the universe works should freak you out.
If I look at that kind of math, I may as well be looking at hieroglyphics, because it's the exact same. Hieroglyphics might have more meaning to me, actually.
Well, think about the idea that you can simulate with math the rockets that Elon Musk is shooting up, that he can simulate what that's going to look like, and then to land it again, that with math, you could simulate all of that, and it would reflect what's actually going to happen. That should freak you out. That there is something, and mind you, that math was there since the beginning of the universe. It had to be. We discovered it. Mm-hmm. It's not like human beings appeared and then all of a sudden 1 + 1 = 2. No, if 1 + 1 didn't equal 2, human beings couldn't have even evolved.
Right.
Like if these weren't the laws, we could never have even discovered them. So that means that they existed. That's magic. That's magic. That's meaning. That's consciousness. So when they say trust the science, what is really being said is that like, I have no idea what's going on. I've been led down a path in this material world where I was told that it's very explainable. It's this mechanism. It's this machine that's actually relatively simple, that people know. There's people out there who actually know how this whole thing works, and they don't know how it works any better than they knew in the Dark Ages, really, because the deeper they dig, the more they know they don't actually know anything. The deeper they dig, they're like, where is the ground? Where is the foundation? It's not here. And that doesn't help people anyway. What helps people is like, how do I get through my day-to-day life? And so where we're at is we're at a place where we human beings have, I do believe this is like a Tower of Babel moment, that we reached the point where we were trying to build this edifice to the sky. And we figured out, in so building this edifice to the sky, holy shit, it doesn't matter. Like, Elon Musk, SpaceX, okay? SpaceX. People don't care. They're really not excited about what Elon Musk is. Not really. They're not more excited about it than they are a fucking reality show.
I'd be curious
on
if the
TV.
SpaceX videos of those rockets, how those views compare to like a flat Earth video, for example.
Yeah, well, dude, how they compare to just like a trailer for, some random movie, right, for the next Marvel movie. Probably much less. Much less. So it's like people are just as excited about some fantasy movie that's the Game of Thrones. They're just as excited for the show finale of Game of Thrones as they are for Elon Musk shooting a rocket. Okay, well, when you reach that point, more science is not going to be helpful to your culture or your society.
So I guess this all begs the question, Vin, if we have entered the dim age, so to speak, and if logic and reason and on the charts and the graphs aren't going to get us out of these things, aren't going to solve our problems, aren't going to convince people of anything, how does one navigate the dim age? And that's what I kind of want to dig into next. And you often talk about magic, and a lot of people might not really understand what what exactly you mean when you say that. They might picture you conjuring spells, and maybe that is kind of what you mean in a way, because we are talking about ultimately having to use words and using persuasion.
Yes.
But what is the path forward for anyone listening to this, thinking, well, this is hopeless. Then I can't. I'm not going to be able to do anything in this world in this dim age. I'm just going to have to go along, do whatever I can do to get by, and maybe form my own agorist community and try to get as far away from these people as possible. But other than that, how can we actually navigate this society, this world, not become total hermits, and actually function with these people who are trusting the science or what have you?
Well, okay. So when I say magic, what I mean by magic, or the definition of magic, is the altering of reality through force of will. And I'm really using it in the way that, as sort of an allusion to Arthur C. Clarke. He's got these Clarke's 3 rules, which are very famous, but the most famous is the third rule. And the third rule says, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So, and there's also a corollary that says, any technology that can be distinguished from magic is insufficiently advanced. Okay, so anything that looks like magic is just a very advanced technology. That's it. Must be. There's no such thing as magic. There's only very, very advanced technology. And so changing magic is when you change reality through force of will, right? So I can there's a nail or there's a board, right? I want to attach this board to this board. So I get a nail and I get a hammer and I hit it in, and you see, oh, there's a nail, it's going in, or there's a screw, and I screw it with the screwdriver. These are crude tools, right? Crude technology does not look like magic. If I just take the board and then I take another board and I go bong, and they stick together, and you're looking and you're like, what the hell? How is it sticking together? It's like magic. It's like, clearly it's not magic. I have access to some sort of technology that you don't understand, right? So look around at all the technology you have and see how much of it you actually understand at the level that you understand a screw, even if you understand how a screw works, right? Can you tell me how they made that screw? Can you tell me how they got they got it so every single screw has the threads in exactly the same place and is exactly the same size to fit exactly the same screwdriver? Can you tell me that? Can you tell me what metal it's made out of? No, nobody can. Nobody can. And it's so just accept you're in a world with technology that is sufficiently advanced such that it's indistinguishable from magic. Okay. So now we've reached that point. This is not the first time in history we've reached that point. That's why Rome turned into ruins. Nobody could use it anymore. Nobody knew how to fix the aqueducts. I mean, the aqueducts were working for some period of time, and then they ceased working. They broke. And when they broke, nobody knew how to fix them. Well, that's exactly what would happen right now if all of the parts ran out for your iPhone. Like if Apple stopped making parts and nobody made parts anymore, eventually your iPhone would break and then you would just have no more iPhone. That's what it would be. And then maybe an archaeologist hundreds of years from now would find, a pile of iPhone screens or something. So we've been through this. And it's funny that you say, well, how can we survive this without just like becoming a hermit? And that's kind of, weirdly enough, like that's kind of how the Dark Age was survived. Mm-hmm. That was sort of the adaptational process. If you go back to right around the time that like the people that are called like the church fathers in the Christian church, I mean, one of the reasons why Byzantium stuck around, why it didn't fall, is because it adopted a religion. This is an interesting difference between the West and the East, was that they adopted a religion and then they didn't really change it. They just like kept it. And for some reason that is correlated with the Eastern Roman Empire sticking around and the Western Roman Empire falling. There's whether it caused it, whether it's correlated, who knows? What we see now is we see a brand new religion. A brand new religion is rising. And I think that if we look at this religion, it is not an empowering religion, clearly, from what you've been describing. If we're going to create a group of people who are going to be scared to take a cloth when they're walking around without a cloth mask on.
That's what I think about when those babies are adults. If you think the people bad now are that are screaming at people for masks, imagine these children that have grown up literally thinking that this is the only thing keeping them safe. Imagine how they're going to react to people that don't wear a mask.
Well, I
If
mean,
there are any left by then.
if you want to know what this is like, I mean, I think most people listening to this will be able to relate to the idea of like, okay, imagine yourself out and about. You reach in your pocket or your purse or your handbag, as the case may be, and all of a sudden, where's my phone? Where's my phone? I don't have my
panic.
phone.
Absolute panic.
Exactly. Everybody can, and think about those. I remember having the clamshell flip phones and stuff. That wouldn't have been my reaction when I had those things.
Yeah.
I was not attached to it in that way. Right.
Back
I would
then,
be
it would just be
shit,
like, oh, I guess it's probably back in my house. I'll just call somebody.
Yeah.
Later.
And it was, it would have broken anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I would probably have to get another one anyway. But now it's like, we've got photos on there. I've got my bank is on there. I've got my, I'm going to have to reload everything. What about all my contacts? What about all this, and it's like that panic already to the point where, oh, here's this limb. So of course, that's the society that is like, well, let's add another thing, right? Let's add this other thing that I always have to have. And then let's add this other thing that I always have to have. And then let's add this shot that I have to put inside of me that I must have. And then, I need to have a card that goes along with that. And and it's just like one thing after the other thing after the other. And the reason why is, and this gets to your point about how you survive this. The reason why is lack of meaning. You're adding things to yourself because you do not feel that what you have is enough. And so it's going to take, the way to survive this is that you're going to need to find a community of people. And how it happened before, like this is when we saw the church fathers, we saw monks, we saw all, and a few hundred years later, couple hundred years later, we see, a guy outside of Mecca going into a cave and basically doing the same sorts of things. And he comes up with like the next big religion that gives a ton of people meaning. And those people who have meaning go and basically take over most of what used to be the Roman Empire. Certainly the southernmost part and all the way up into Spain, right? And I'm talking about Muhammad and Islam. And that was what was being delivered, was meaning. And still, even to this day, we see that like one of the hallmarks of that religion and what makes it able to have this massive clash of civilizations is that it's like, okay, I'll strap a bomb onto my body. Like that's how little it's worth. Like it's what's really worth something is something greater and outside and intangible. And so what we're going to have to get to is the only way to survive this is individuals. And look, dude, this is so hard. Like, it's not like an easy solution or an easy answer, but it's something that like I've taken up myself as a practice, because who would I be to say this is what we need to do if I'm not willing to do it? And I'm
You'd
willing
be like
to
that
do
physical
it,
trainer who just gives you one, it tells you about one workout, but goes and does another one.
This is me, and this is like what I've dedicated my life to, and this is what I have reintegrated as a part of my practice. And luckily, I've had some of this throughout my life. But it's like you've got to find something, and for a lot of people, I think the people who are really thriving this year, you look around and you see people who have like rediscovered their religion. People who were raised, especially in the Catholic or Orthodox Church, seem to be thriving more than anybody right now because they have something to go back to. They're like, okay, I have some foundation, something to be a part of. I'm seeing more and more people like, I'm returning to my, parish where I'm at, and there's tons of young people again. Well, not so much like evangelical Christians, not so much like Protestants, but Catholics and Orthodox, it seems like, because those are the ones that have already rituals. It's like, no, we've already got some rituals. I don't need the mask ritual because I've got this ritual. I don't need the vaccine ritual because I have this ritual. And it also has some rituals that you can do by yourself.
There's less of that void there that other people are filling. They don't have any kind of practice in their life. Now they have a practice. Now they have a thing they do. I put on my mask every morning. I go outside. I social distance. I'm part of this. I'm part of something bigger.
And I think it's to come to the realization And this is what our culture has been trying to deny for at least 3 generations now. And it was a bad move. It was a unsustainable move. Is the idea that, you know what, every human being is an island. There is no history or anything like that. You can write your own future of what it's going to be. You're unaffected by the past. You're unaffected by your family. You're unaffected by your culture. All of those things are nothing. That was the first big mistake. And then number two, it was that ritual is like superstition or not real, and that even though we were practicing, it's like Super Bowl Sunday. I mean, if that's not a ritual, right? That even though we were practicing rituals, it was couched in this sort of commercialized, this environment of the commercial, to where it was like it was meaningless.
And the Super Bowl is so much of a ritual that even the regular followers of the church, even people that don't watch NFL, couldn't tell you one thing about any of the teams involved. Of course, they're compelled to go to Super Bowl Sunday. Of course, they're compelled to go to church on Christmas. It's the big holiday. Well, I'll make it for that one, of course.
And isn't that the typical thing when people are like, yeah, I was raised, that type of Catholic, like church on Easter, church on Christmas, and it's like Super Bowl Sunday. And not only do they go to the Super Bowl, but they wear the jersey. Like, you'll see women who have never watched a football game besides Super Bowl Sunday get all done up for Super Bowl Sunday in the jersey, the whole night. And it's like, yo, man, if this is not church on Easter, and it's even called an Easter dress and an Easter hat, right? Like, the idea was that, everybody's going to get dressed up and go and do it. And so the thing is to not deny religion. That's the big danger of the dim age, because a religion is being pushed. It's being pushed onto you. The only way that you're not going to be sucked into that and suffer is if you outright have another religion. And when you outright have another religion, like, one of the things that happens is, and I know you've done this, I've done this, it's weird that I see people who their mind is not even here, but it's like, you leave. There would be no United States of America if some people, they say, oh, well, escaping religious persecution. That's not accurate. It's not religious persecution. It was the idea that there was a state religion. That state religion required them to do things that were antithetical to their religion. And so they had to leave. The Pilgrims came, they landed on Plymouth, all of this, they left. But it can go really bad. Like, it can go Nazi style. It can go Soviet style, where they did the same thing and like knocked out all of the churches. Or it can be like an even weirder one, like Spanish Inquisition. So people don't know about the Spanish Inquisition, that like the Inquisition was not against people who wouldn't convert. And I think this is more what people need to think about. So the Spanish Inquisition, after the Spanish king and queen basically took back over Spain, took it from the Moors, the Muslims we were talking about, who had taken over much of the old Roman Empire, who had, a relatively like open and civilized society, that was very sort of pluralistic. These people came in, Ferdinand and Isabella, they took it over. Basically, they expelled everybody who wouldn't convert. If you didn't convert, you just couldn't live here. You're expelled, gone. A lot of Muslims and a lot of Jews, there were Sephardic Jews there, converted. They called them conversos. Now, the Inquisition was against the conversos. So it was against people who had previously said, that's not me. And then they were like, but I want to stay. So, okay, I'll go to church on Easter. Right. But if you were accused of secretly still practicing your religion, then the Inquisition came for you.
Right. This kind of makes me think of some of the restaurant tours out here in Los Angeles right now. Yes. They're just again shutting them down, and they have there's one video of like a public health department coming out, and the guy's just going off, but these guys all voluntarily shut down with them and I'll
did.
comply with it 9 months ago. So they already kind of agreed to the whole concept. And only now, when they really realize, oh shit, no, this is for real. This is really going to be happening all the time. This is how it is now. Now they want to fight back, but now you've already kind of conceded the entire game.
Well, this is history repeats itself. I saw one thing where there was this person who was talking about, I'm being shut down. And again, LA County, I'm being shut down after I spent $80,000 putting the outdoor seating and doing all of this. And it's like, yo, man, not only did you go along, you bent over backwards to go along because you figured you had the $80,000. See, the little taco shop that never had outdoor seating anyway, you figured, oh, well, they're gone. You looked at your across the street competitor who was just struggling to barely make it by, but was still taking money from you, or was just a newly started up. They don't have that 80 grand to do that. They're not an established business. So you were like, well, they're going out of business. They're going, but I'm going to be able to make it through. See, I can
just
spend
comply.
the money.
I'll put up the screens. I'll be
socially
distant.
I'll just go along, and wow, the state is putting my competitors out of business. They're putting my competitors out of business. And you know what? That's exactly what the conversos were doing. Because many of them, you got to remember, they were the ones in charge. They were the bureaucrats, especially the Sephardic Jews. Like the Moors were the landed wealthy class, but sort of the bureaucratic class, the people who were running the bureaucracy, the treasury, the collecting taxes, doing all of that. A lot of that was being run by Sephardic Jews, the top merchants and all of this. And so it's like, well, okay, they kicked out our bosses. Right? The Moors are gone. They got kicked out, or they died in battle, or whatever. They were fighting for it. Okay, but we're still here, and these guys are here in charge now. And what's the real difference? Sultan or king and queen? Like, and they say, I got to go to this little thing and do this. Whatever. I can do that. I can put up the $80,000 to do the outside seating. And it's like, no, no, because we know that that's not for real.
And you've now agreed with the entire tenets, all the tenets of the religion. So now you have to follow it.
Now, and if you don't, you'll be treated as an apostate. You're not treated as a non-believer. See, you're treated as something worse because now you're lying. Now you're not participating in this, even though you said you were, right? If social distancing doesn't actually help to protect people, why were you willing to spend $80,000 to make sure that you could social distance? Why were you sending out emails to your mailing list saying, we take every precaution to keep our patrons safe, and that's the reason why we've instituted this? See, I saw this from the beginning. All the businesses that did that. There was the coffee place that I used to go to write when I was still in California in the mornings. You know, when it all started, I saw them say, oh, well, you know, we're instituting this, and like we're moving these things around, and we're trying to keep everybody safe. And I was like, you're going to go out of business. 3 months later, out of business. That's it. You can't agree to go along with the religion. And that, well, I mean, you can, but you better figure out that it's a religion. Right? You better figure out this is a religion. And then it would really behoove you, if you care. And this is why libertarians are losing right now, big time. One of the reasons that libertarians are losing is because, by and large, the libertarian movement has been anti-religion. By and large, been very logic and reason, very atheist, anti-religion, even though the basis of the movement is completely religious. I mean, 100% religious. You know, the Declaration of Independence, endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that's religion. Right. That's the entire shit is based on religion. That's religion. Endowed by their creator, that's religion. You can't start on that foundation and then be like, no, but I don't really go in for all that religion stuff. But it's like, well, where do your rights come from? Where do your rights come from?
Well, I got this chart right here that shows. Oh, wait.
Exactly. No, but this is the point. that you're not going to be able to defeat a religion with charts and graphs. That's why I'm trolling Tucker and others, is that that's what you really think you're going to do. You're going to defeat a religion. You can't even, like,
the only thing you can really do is give red meat to your own religion, like libertarianism.
Yes.
I'll be like, oh yeah, he's right, but I'm like, but this doesn't matter to anybody else that he's right. So it's just for me. It's for us. It's for people to say, all right.
Well, and does it even matter to libertarians? Because at the end of the day, they're still humans, and we still have, there's still normative social influence. So we are still going to go with the herd most of the time. We have to. And so the only thing that you have is to find your own faith. It's I hate to say it, but it's like, it's not to say that you need to expect that you are going to be thrown to the lions. It's not to say to expect that you're going to be, hung up and tortured or whatever. But the idea and the story of like these martyrs is that it's like, and it's not just Christian martyrs, but it's like there were, during the Nazi regime, there were Jews who stood up during the pogroms in
protecting
Russia.
A Jew is almost worse than being a Jew.
There you go. And there were people who did, because they had something inside of them and they were willing to risk what was going to happen, what could potentially happen. And the only reason you're willing to risk that is because you have some view of what's right. And so people are going to have to develop that. Unfortunately, I don't see that in a lot of the libertarian movement. I think it's been a disappointing thing for those of us who actually are willing to put it on the line. I'm not talking about necessarily like an armed revolution, but I'm talking about something as simple as grab your kids, get on a plane, and go somewhere where the tyrants aren't. Even if it's like, well, what about the schools? Well, how are the schools? What? Could you imagine if a Czechoslovakian Jew would have been like, well,
but they have a great math department, don't you understand?
I can't get on a boat and go to America and get away from these Nazis, or get away from these Soviets because, well, what about the schools? They don't have.
They have a lunch program. They have milk every day. I mean,
it's absolutely incredible, man. Like and so it's just like, wow, if you're not even willing to do that. There's not 1776 will not commence, okay? Because that's a much larger commitment. And they're like, well, when it gets bad enough, well, dude, no. Because like way before that, you've left and you haven't left. People leave first. Like, why? What, you leave first. You know what I mean? But people aren't. They're sticking around. So I believe it'll continue and it'll get much worse.
I think what a lot of people might be thinking listening to this is they might think, okay, I pick up and leave. But, if this is happening globally, this is like a global shift. It's not like I can just necessarily per se leave the U.S. Like if I go to Paris, I'm not anywhere better. So what would you say to those that say like, okay, so leave and then what? Like what if I leave? I go somewhere else and the culture's there too. The mass culture's there too. The same thing's happening there.
But the same thing isn't happening everywhere.
Yeah.
The same thing isn't happening everywhere. And the places that you have to go are the places that have a strong culture. It's one of the things that that has impressed me about being here in Saipan, is that, the culture here is 3,000 years old. Now they've had a lot of influence. They've had the Spanish came and took it over. Then the Germans were here. And the Japanese, then obviously the Americans came in and bombed the crap out of it, and there's still tanks in the lagoon from World War II. The Battle of Saipan was a big deal. And they, everybody here is an American citizen, but, you're hard pressed to find like a white American walking around that's just kind of not here. And, the official language that everything has to be in is Chamorro. Not English. Like if on government buildings, it's Chamorro first. So the people here are ancient families. There's like, a dozen big families. They have all the political power. There's not a white American in elected office here. Not a single one. And the people who hold all the political power and who hold the cultural strings, they recognize their culture as being old. But you see the same thing as, Turkey is one of the most open places in the world right now. Anybody can come into it's one of the most open places. Why? It's one of the oldest cultures.
I can see that too. As you know, I was in Mexico for a few months over the summer, kind of escaping for a bit there. And what I noticed too, Mexico was also one of the few countries that stayed completely open. There was never a restriction as far as coming and going. But I think a large part of that is, this isn't biological speaking in terms of a virus, but the culture is so strong. The culture is so incredibly strong. It is like a family culture. You go to Mexico. Mi casa es tu casa is how it is. That is the truth, and it is that way. You're treated that way if you're a gringo coming in who's an outsider, or if you're someone who's been there forever. And I think cultures, like, I can see a lot of similarities between strong cultures where maybe it's not a specific religion. There are some people are Catholic, some people are what, but the culture is even a greater religion than all that. The culture of a family, the culture of we are truly looking out for each other, that supersedes anything the government could do.
I think that's so going to places where the family is primary will, especially extended families, right? I'm half Mexican, so like the idea of family and the Mexicans listening, even those who are like third and fourth and fifth generation and live somewhere else, are going to be like, oh yeah. It is pressed into you that there is nothing more important than family. And your aunties and uncles, and you don't even know how they're really related to you. Are they second cousins, third cousins? If they're older than you, that's your uncle. They're your same age, that's your cousin. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how it works. And if you need, if some cousin that I don't know, and this has happened before, calls me up and is like, hey, this happened in LA a couple times, like, hey, I'm at USC now and whatever. And it's like, okay, I think I've met you maybe one time at some family reunion like 10 years ago, but
come on over.
Okay, come on over. Right? Like, this is here. I'm here. What do you need? Let me know anything, because I know that the same situation is true if I'm in his city in Mexico. And that's the same thing that's here. And that's the same thing in Turkey. And that's the same thing in any of the places, where the family hasn't been atomized, where people are like, no, we're together. That's where people are not going to rely on the state, on the experts, because there's something greater and something more. And so this is going to be a time to develop communities. I know that, people are like, well, where do I go if I go here and go there? And it's like, but have you even looked?
Right.
Like, that's
most people saying that are not the ones that have like spent the last 2 weeks researching 20 different places they could go. They're people that aren't even going to do that.
No. And so then it's like, okay, well, then who do you want to stop it? Who do you want to stop it? Or you're waiting for Donald
the next libertarian
Trump?
Presidential candidate.
You're waiting for Joe Jorgensen to get more than 1% of the vote? Like, who is going to stop it? If you are not willing to take 2 weeks of research to find out if there's someplace. Now, look, I'm here and I'm telling you there's someplace you can go. I'm telling you that. I'm in it. I'm here. I'm actually sitting next to a guy who came from Germany to come here, who had to travel for 3 weeks because he had to be outside of the Schengen zone for 2.
Jeez.
So he got on a plane, went to Istanbul, stayed there for 2 weeks, then made multiple flights, including he had to end up staying overnight in like a supply closet in Narita Airport in Japan to leave. And it's like, if you don't at least want to get, and now Germany is under hard lockdown for weeks.
I'd say the trip was worth it.
Yeah. Well, do you not want to be under hard lockdown? What is it worth to you to not be under lockdown? Because if it's not worth it to you, then if it's not worth it to you to do anything about it, why on earth would the politicians stop? If you stay, why would they stop?
Yeah.
Like, if they can shut down your business, and that guy was yelling at those people, right? Those code enforcement officers, but I've dealt with code enforcement officers. They're a bunch of psychopaths. They love that. It's excitement for their day. They love watching you look like a fool, and then they walk out and they're like, well, you're shut down anyway. Ha! Look at the power that we have. That's why they became code enforcement officers, to be able to do that. That's what they do all day. They love it. They love destroying people's living. They love it, destroying people's lives, right? And it's like, okay, but you didn't pull out a gun and shoot them. You didn't you yelled at them. You got upset.
You went back,
right?
they left, and then you started sanitizing your plexiglass again.
That's it. That's it. And you're still out of a business. You didn't leave. You know, could you have taken that $80,000 and started again somewhere else? Probably. And so, you know, I mean, I said this before. When was the last time we talked? June, something like that?
It was June. Yeah, it was back in June.
So June, I remember you sort of asked me a similar question. And my response to you, I remember exactly my response. It was, get your shit and go.
That's verbatim.
That is verbatim what I said.
Think about 3 times, emphasize higher each time was the exact.
Get your shit and go. That was June. This is December, July, August, September. You would have had you listened, you would have been somewhere and established for now 6 months. How would your life be different? Would you be looking forward to more lockdowns, or could you have been in a place where the lockdowns are not happening? It's 6 months enough time. You could have planned, you could have saved. You didn't need to, maybe you didn't go right then, right? But it's like, when? How much worse do you let it be? That was 6 months ago.
Or have you at least, if you're the person saying where to go 6 months ago, are you saying that now today? Or have you opened up Google? Have you done something?
You didn't take a few hours in 6 months? In 6 months. Because maybe I just didn't know what the hell I was talking about, right? Like maybe, and so now are you listening? And now it's like, well, this guy he's obviously crazy. He obviously has no insight whatsoever. Never mind the fact that I have been since April in a place with no lockdown. Never mind that fact, right? But I obviously know nothing. I was in Southern California, you know, and people are like, oh, I don't have the money to go and do that. Like, do you know that for sure? Do you actually know that for sure? You know,
there are so many places you can go where you need much less money than you currently have.
Almost everywhere.
Yeah.
Almost everywhere. And what is it worth? What is it? Could you in 6 months have researched not only a place, but possibly where you could have, like employment, all of that in 6 months? If you were dedicated to it? Could you not have made some phone calls in 6 months? They were obviously listening to podcasts. Could you not have?
We know they didn't lose their iPhone and have a panic.
Didn't lose the iPhone. They were all over Twitter. It's like, yo, man, like for just an instant. And so I think that goes sort of full circle to like, what is the solution? And what is the thing that, you know, I wake up in the morning now, and the most powerful thing that I have done yet, and I was just thinking this today about how different my life is. I used to wake up, and for years and years and years, very first thing that I would do, grab my phone, check my phone. I mean, first, within minutes of my eyes opening, pick up my phone, check my phone, and boom, I'm right to it. Now, no. I put my phone on the table. I live right on the beach, which is nice, like which you could do if you lived here. I live right on the beach, open my back gate, walk onto the beach, right? I go down, do my morning prayers, my morning workout, all of this, come back. By that time, I'm feeling fully rejuvenated. I'm inspired, do some writing. Then I go and pick up my phone hours later.
Once you're yourself, once you're in your good place, but you don't want to start your day with this bombardment of dim age insanity coming at you left to right, with the church of woke blasting you with nonsense, people getting angry at each other. If that's how you start your day, you're never going to get to the part of the day where you're rejuvenated and
Well,
you're fresh.
there is no part of the day where, because it's like
Exactly,
most people start and end their day. And then what do you have? You have when you're asleep. That's it. And it's and then you are in it.
Probably
Like
the
that.
the biggest change I've seen in my life over the last year is incorporating yoga in the morning and trying.
Yes.
And I don't do it every day. There are certain days when I get up and I have to go to work soon and I start on the phone. But
Oh, me too.
I can tell a massive difference between the day that I get up on my phone and I start doing that stuff from the days that I get up, I don't look at it, I go do an hour and a half of yoga, I take the time to meditate afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
That is a totally different day than the other kind of day. No matter what else happens afterwards, the way I'm going to deal with what happens afterwards is going to be totally different. I'm not going to snap at things. I'm going to be at peace. I'm going to be fine that day. The other day, probably not.
Well, so you go and you look. Like, I've looked at go and read the Rule of Saint Benedict. It's kind of interesting. It's there's Benedictine monks, Christian monks. They follow the Rule of Saint Benedict. It's basically a rule of how to live as a monk that was written by Saint Benedict, who was a monk in the beginning of the Dark Ages, followed the Roman Empire. And that's a huge part of it. A huge part of it is get up before sunrise and get into this spiritual practice, right? And so whether that's, my own morning workout incorporates the yoga and the stretching as well as the resistance stuff. And and I used old prayers. I used the Jesus prayer, which is just basically a mantra, right? And it's like, these things, look at what we're talking about. We're talking about these old ancient forms. These are ancient forms. Like, why did people adopt these as something to say, do it every day? Well, why? Because it really makes a difference. And it makes you who you are. And then you can see that other thing, right? As the Hindus, the Indians would say that, like, then you see the Maya, the illusion that's coming at you, that's the dim age, and you're able to be like, oh, that's an illusion.
Mm-hmm. That's not the reality.
Not real.
That's not what I need to be concerned about and freaking out about all day. Get into your own reality. Find yourself first. Realize what's real, and then the illusions just kind of melt around you.
And find communities of people who are willing to do the same, right? And that goes into, when you're like, oh, I got to go off and be a hermit. But it's like, but that was what the monastic tradition was about. That's why when the Dark Ages started to pop, and these people most of them were Greek or Latin speaking. So you imagine you're a Latin speaking person. There's this, you come up in this world where, like, Rome is everything. The culture of Rome, it's the language that you speak, and it's all of this, and you're watching it crumble in front of you. You're watching it crumble. And the meaning that is you think in Latin, and you're watching it crumble. What do? You've got to re-find something inside of you. Who am I? And that's what those practices are. And then the idea was that for some reason, all of these people started to gather together. And those were, and that was the tradition from which all of the Western intellectual tradition continued. The Western culture continued. It was the monks who were called the church fathers. It was those spiritual practices, but the same is true in India, in the East. The same is true even further east when you're getting into, like, Tai Chi, and you're getting into Qigong, and you're getting into all of these practices as well. It's like, why do those stick? They stick because, like, that's an attachment to something that's real. Fasting, all of these things, it's an attachment to something that's real. And it's like, do that. It doesn't have to be in a religious context, but believe me, it's going to get real religious real fast if you're real serious about it.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, because I am kind of one of those people that, at least when I was younger, I was raised in a Jewish household, but I kind of rejected the dogmatic religion. Sure. And I guess I had, like, an atheist, or at least, like, agnostic, but really atheist phase. And I don't know if I necessarily believe in deities per se, but I absolutely found religion simply through non-religious practices, through meditation, through yoga, through and not just the practices themselves, but what you realize about the rest of everything else by doing these practices. I mean, it's just like I just one example. Like something happened a couple weeks ago in a parking lot. A guy kind of got angry about something, and 5 years ago, Mark would have been screaming at this guy. We would have been yelling at each other. I mean, and instead, I didn't do this consciously. I just noticed. I just said, hey, "What's wrong? Why are we upset here?" And I can't remember what's up. Let's exchange numbers. There's no problem here. Everything's fine. And I saw him like come down. I didn't really realize this as I was doing it, but my wife kind of mentioned afterwards. She's like, "Oh yeah, that's because of the yoga." Because I was like, what? I'm not going to be, I'm in this place. I'm not going to just become this angry person after having that start to my day, after doing this for weeks and weeks and weeks. I don't think I could get to that place if I wanted to. And why would I ever want to? But it was amazing to actually see my own sort of spirit about it actually change his demeanor completely, because he clearly was ready for a fight. Maybe not a fist fight, but he was ready to yell. He's ready to be angry. And I just would not get into that game. I instead kind of went into my Jedi mind trick Zen place, and I calmed the whole situation down, and then it was fine.
And this is, fear and anger are really indistinguishable from one another in terms of at the height, the adrenaline rush, it's so similar physiologically, of intense fear and intense anger, because they're made to give you the same thing, fight or flight, right? That they're meant for the same for the same action to take place, right? That's the purpose of these two emotions, and we're in a state of heightened fear, and you've got to actively protect yourself from that. And the way to do that is exactly as you've said there. Like you have to daily take that shit down. Like you've got to get back and get centered, and that's a real thing. Maybe it wasn't so necessary when we were not in this global fear state, but that's making people sick too. People are committing suicide. Suicides are like rampant now, and suicides that in people's suicide notes, they're attributing it to the lockdowns, the fear, all of this stuff. They're attributing them taking their own life. It's easier to take their own life than to continue, potentially living through what we're living through. And so it's individual action. And I know that you have taken upon yourself, but I mean, I do think that like set and setting is important. So mindset is important, but also where you are is so crucial. And I think that the people who, even if what you start out doing is you just start out with these practices, take on a practice with the idea that, you know what, I'm going to do it daily, and I'm going to try to get better at it and see how long, because as you get better at the practice, you're going to have a longer period of time throughout your day, and you're going to be like, oh, that's good. Oh, that worked. Try adding something else. And as you move forward, you're going to realize like, the place needs to be different. But this is anybody who practices anything, right? So it doesn't matter whether it's a professional and artisanal practice. It doesn't matter whether it's a straight artistic practice. If you're a dancer, if you're a visual artist and you're a painter, you're going to want a studio. If you do yoga, there's going to be some places that are better than others. There's a reason why people go and do yoga on a beach. There's a reason why people go and do yoga on a mountaintop or meditate there. Find a meditation spot. There's a reason for that. It's because it's better, right? The setting makes it better. And if part of your practice, for years I was a bodybuilder, and so it was like where I lived had to be close to a great gym. That was just a part of my life. I would choose where I was going to live based upon what's the distance to the gym. That was a major concern, because I was going to be in the gym every day. Right? If somebody's a vegan, they'll probably have the same sort of consideration about like, okay, where can I get my vegan groceries? Right? Where can I get a vegan food? Where are the restaurants? They'll probably choose to live somewhere like that. Right? And so the same thing is, do the practice, and then where you need to be starts to become really obvious.
Yeah. if you get into a really spiritual, calm place, uh, being in a major lockdown American city is not going to really jive with
No,
the spirit and the place that you're at. I can say that
no,
actually from personal experience. So
no.
yeah.
So and that's but I think that it's such the answer, that people don't want to hear, well, what do I need to do? Well, you need to find a practice that is going to center you so that you can actually make good decisions. Then you don't need any advice from me about what to do, because now you have the workout, right? Like we were talking about the personal trainer. Like,
right.
no, now you have the workout the personal trainer is doing.
You design your own workout ultimately. That's the one you're going to do.
And the kind of the cool part about it, and why I say it gets religious really fast, is like, as you start to try to get better, and I'm sure that you found this as well, and you start researching, it's like all of the answers to all of this stuff is there in like all sorts of different traditions, and it's really old, and it's been around forever, and for the most part it's out there for free, but you just got to look for it. And then as you start to read the philosophy of the individuals who are also practicing what you're practicing, you're like, oh, now I start to understand what these things mean. Now I start, and I mean, especially if people who are Judeo-Christian, it's like you start having some meditative practice, you start getting into, the a sort of any sort of awareness meditation or whatever, and then you go back and read scriptures, you start to see like, oh, that's what that means. Okay, like this was somebody practicing this. Oh, that's the metaphor that they're using. Okay, all right, I get it now. This makes a little more sense to me. It's not just like go and like rote worship it in Sunday school type of stuff, right? It's
Exactly.
like, oh, this is like an actual somebody speaking from experience here of experiencing something that I'm experiencing right now. And so this is like, there's a religion being foisted. I think basically the long and short is like, there's a religion that is being introduced. And I'm not convinced and this is the Church of Woke. I call it the COVID faith. That's the introduction to the Church of Woke. This is the religion being introduced. I think the thing about this is that it's a state religion that's going to just be put on like as though it was reality. But that was true of like the palace Athena, the temple to Athena on top of Athens. The city was named after Athena, and it wasn't just like this is a religion. It was like this is reality. This is what reality is, that these gods exist and that we go and we do these things, and there's a temple up there and she's the one protecting the city, and that was reality. And that's just like the masks. Got to take it that way. Take it as a religion. Decide whether you want to be part of that religion. Some people do. Some people really do. Like this totally resonates with them. Otherwise it wouldn't be happening. If you don't want to be part of the religion, you need to find something within yourself that is going to give you the ability to make decisions about where you need to be, who you need to be around, and what you need to be doing and thinking in order to not be, to not fall into the suffering part of that religion coming in. And that's basically it.
All right, I think that's pretty damn good advice. Coming into I guess not coming into. I guess we're already here. We're already in
We're
the
in
dim
it.
age. So
We're in
you
it.
can either accept that we're in it, accept what's going on around you, and act like it's not really happening, or you can try to find your religion in some way or another. But Vin,
Mm-hmm.
thanks so much for coming on, man. It's been a blast, man. It's always great talking to you, and keep up what you're doing. I'll let you if you have any more final words before I let you sign off here. Feel free to shine away. Maybe it's just another one last get your shit and get out of here. But
I think going internally and seeing this as a grand opportunity. People have been talking about the Great Reset. Take that on as not being something negative. You have an opportunity to reset, and obviously, life is not going back to the way that it's going that it had been. Life is it's now changed forever, and I think the people who realize that are at a distinct advantage from people who are pining for it to go back to some other time. So if it isn't going to go back to how it is, now you have the opportunity to find a new you, and that's a great opportunity. And you're able to do it at a time when there's a lot of other people who are wanting to do it and who are doing it as well. And so it's like, find who you are. I know that sounds very cliche, but I think that it's really appropriate right now, because you're going to need to know who you are, and then find the group of people that resonates with you, because community is a big part of this whole thing. But it's going to start with individuals doing their own thing. And I think, take this as a grand opportunity.
Yeah, I see so many people out there saying 2020 is the worst year ever, and I see why if you just look at all the things around,
Mm-hmm.
around. To me, 2020 was the best year of my life by far. It's not even close,
Mm-hmm.
because I've used
Mm-hmm.
this year to transform myself in so many ways, and I'm more excited about next year because I know I'm gonna, even when I see things going in a bad way, a totalitarian way around me, I know that I'm gonna use these situations to better myself even more. And so it's everything is gonna be what you make of it in life. And
Mm-hmm.
if there's ever time to make something of it and to have a reset of yourself, this is the time. And if now's not the time, then when is?
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more,
I think
Mark.
that's a good way to wrap things up, Vin. Best of luck,
Indeed.
brother. Take care, man.
Thank you. Thank you.